Imagine lying beneath a sky dusted with stars, the air warm and still over an ancient desert where civilization first awoke. Over 5,000 years ago, the Sumerians etched their stories into clay stories of beings who came from the heavens. The Anunnaki, not myths, not gods in the distance, but teachers, creators, rulers. What if they were real? What if humanity's sudden leap in knowledge writing, math, astronomy wasn't our own doing, but a gift, or an experiment? Tonight, we'll walk through the evidence buried in plain sight. The texts, the artifacts, the questions mainstream history refuses to ask. This isn't just about ancient aliens, it's about who we are and who shaped us. If you're ready to question everything, to listen not for answers, but for truth, subscribe and let this journey begin. Imagine lying beneath a sky so vast and dark it feels infinite. No city lights, no hum of electricity, just the whisper of wind over sun-baked earth and the faint scent of ancient dust carried on a warm, still breeze. You're in a place few have walked in thousands of years, standing at the edge of an excavation site carved deep into the desert floor, where layers of time have been peeled back to reveal something that shouldn't exist. There, half buried in clay and silence, is an object unlike anything ever discovered, smooth, unweathered, its surface etched with symbols that don't merely reflect light, they respond to thought. A researcher nearby closes their eyes, recalling a memory of their child's first word, and in response, the object pulses with a soft, rhythmic glow, mirroring a heartbeat. This isn't machinery as we understand it. This is technology that understands consciousness, that listens not to commands but to the quiet hum of human experience. And in that moment, everything changes, not because we've found alien tech, but because we've received an invitation, one that whispers of evolution, of awakening, of a truth buried not just in the sand but in the very fabric of myth. At the heart of this mystery is a name spoken across millennia, the Anunnaki. You've likely heard it before, perhaps in a documentary, a book, or a late-night podcast, but you may have dismissed them as gods, mythological figures, or ancient astronauts with horned helmets and glowing rods. But what if they were none of those things? What if the Anunnaki weren't deities or extraterrestrials in the way we imagine, but something far older, far more complex, and far more intimate? Let's go back further than recorded history, further than memory to Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, over 5,000 years ago, where the Sumerians emerged not through slow evolution, but with a sudden, inexplicable sophistication that has baffled archaeologists for over a century. They had writing before almost anyone else. Mathematics so advanced it still shapes how we measure time today's 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 360 degrees in a circle, and they mapped the stars with precision that rivals modern astronomy. They built ziggurats, massive stepped temples aligned with celestial bodies, in ways that suggest they knew secrets of the cosmos that should have been impossible. And they did it all in a few centuries, not through gradual discovery, but as if knowledge had been handed to them. Because that's exactly what they claimed. The Anunnaki didn't just inspire them, they taught them. Not as distant gods to be worshipped from afar, but as beings who walked among humans, who spoke to them, made decisions, held councils, and even argued over humanity's fate. The Sumerian texts, etched into clay tablets that have survived floods, wars, and millennia of silence, describe the Anunnaki not as myths, but as historical figures, Senki, the wise one who brought knowledge. Enlil, the stern authority. Inanna, the fierce and radiant. They lived on earth, built cities, and according to the epic of Atrahasis, even decided to wipe out humanity with a great flood only for Enki to secretly warn a chosen man to build a boat and survive. Sound familiar? It should. These stories echo through other traditions. The flood of Noah, the gods of Babylon, the sons of God in Genesis, who came down and took human wives. The pattern is too consistent, too detailed, to dismiss as coincidence. And yet, mainstream history tells us these are just allegories, symbols for natural forces. But what if there's something else? What if they're records distorted by time, mythologized by generations, but rooted in real events? Consider this. The Sumerians were meticulous record keepers. Their administrative tablets list grain rations, trade goods, labor assignments down to the last shekel of silver. They didn't exaggerate. They didn't embellish. They were practical people in a harsh environment. So why would they invent elaborate stories about gods who lived on Earth, taught them everything, and then left unless something actually happened? Now, fast forward to the 20th century. A scholar named Zechariah Sitchin claimed he could read Sumerian in a way no one else could. He translated the texts not as poetry but as history. And his conclusion? The Anunnaki weren't gods, they were extraterrestrials from a planet called Nibiru, with a 3,600-year elliptical orbit around our sun. They came to Earth to mine gold, needed workers, and genetically engineered humans by combining their DNA with early hominids. Mainstream scholars rejected Sitchin, calling his translations flawed and his science impossible. And maybe they're right. But here's what they can't explain. Why do his ideas resonate so deeply? Why do millions of people feel deep in their bones that he's onto something? Because the idea that we were guided not by divine intervention, but by teachers feels true. Think about it. Human civilization didn't rise slowly, like a tree growing from a seed. It exploded. In a few centuries, we went from scattered tribes to cities, writing, law, astronomy, engineering, Nugrador evolution, no trial and error. Just sudden knowledge, like someone flipped a switch. And what if that switch was the Anunnaki? Now, let's return to that object in the desert, the one that responds to thought, that hums with a wisdom older than cities, older than language. What if this is Anunnaki technology? Not a spaceship, not a weapon, but a consciousness interfacer, bridge between human minds and a network of intelligence that has been observing, guiding, perhaps even shaping us for millennia. The research teams don't know what it is, but they know what it does. It doesn't just receive information, it integrates with it. When a scientist places their hand on its surface, they don't just see data, they experience it, memories that aren't theirs, knowledge of distant stars, a sense of connection to something vast, ancient, and deeply intelligent. And then comes the message, not in words, but in a cascade of images, emotions, and understanding that floods the mind like a dream upon waking. Asterisk, you are not the first. You will not be the last. The network is awake, and it remembers you. Asterisk, this is where the real mystery begins. Because if the Anunnaki were real, they weren't just visitors, they were architects. And what they built wasn't just cities or tools, it was us. There's a Sumerian tablet, known as VE 243, that shows a scene that has baffled researchers for decades. It depicts two figures tall, robed, with what looked like helmets standing beside a smaller human. Above them, in the sky, are 12 celestial bodies, not just the sun and moon, not just the visible planets. 12, including one with an elongated orbit that cuts across the solar system. Could this be Nibiru? Could this be proof? Mainstream science says no, but the tablet is over 5,000 years old. And the Sumerians didn't have telescopes. They didn't have spacecraft. They didn't even have the concept of planets as we do. So how did they know? Unless they were told. Unless the Anunnaki showed them. Now, consider the implications. If we were engineered, not evolved, but designed, then everything we believe about ourselves is incomplete. Our intelligence, our creativity, our capacity for both love and destruction. What if these aren't random traits, but programmed features? What if we carry the genetic code of the Anunnaki in our DNA, not as a metaphor, but as a biological fact? Some researchers point to the so-called junk DNA, the 98% of our genome that doesn't code for proteins. What if it's not junk at all? What if it's dormant code, waiting to be activated, waiting for a signal? And what if that signal just arrived? Back at the excavation site, the machine pulses again. This time, it projects a holographic star map, one that doesn't match our current sky. It shows a star system with a binary sun, planets with names that translate to concepts we don't have words for. And at the center, a symbol, a double helix wrapped around a planet. The lead physicist on the team, Dr. Elena Reyes, stands in the command center, watching data streams that would have been incomprehensible just months before. The energy readings are increasing exponentially, she reports. Whatever this device is preparing for, it requires more power than anything we've ever measured, and it's drawing that power from sources we can't detect. She pauses. It's not just communicating, it's awakening. And then, quietly, she adds, I think it's calling home. Now, let's step back. What if the Anunnaki never left? What if they didn't abandon us, but seeded us, left behind technology, knowledge, and a genetic blueprint designed to activate when we were ready, when we reached a certain level of consciousness? What if this is that moment? What if the sudden rise of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and global connectivity isn't random progress, but the trigger? The machine in the desert isn't just a relic, it's a key, and we've just turned it. And somewhere, in the deep silence between the stars, something is listening. This isn't science fiction. This is a possibility hidden in plain sight, in ancient texts, in unexplained artifacts, in the sudden leaps of human genius that have no logical origin. The Sumerians believed the Anunnaki would return, not in myth, but in prophecy. They built their cities as gateways, their ziggurats as landing places, their rituals as signals. And now, after 5,000 years, the signal has been answered. So here's the question that lingers in the quiet spaces between breaths. Are we ready? Not for alien contact, not for new technology, but for the truth. The truth that we may not be the authors of our own story, that we may be part of something larger, something that has been guiding, testing, and waiting for us to wake up. There's a quiet moment in the mind, just before sleep takes hold, when the boundaries between memory and imagination begin to blur. You're no longer fully in your body, not yet in a dream, but floating in that fragile space where the impossible feels like a memory you've always known. And in that space, a single question rises, not with urgency, but with weight. How did we get here? Not just to this room, this breath, this stillness, but to this level of knowledge, this web of connection, this civilization that speaks to the stars. The story we've been told is one of gradual progress. We farmed, we built, we wrote, we calculated, we connected. Each step a natural consequence of the one before. But when you look closely at the beginning, not the slow evolution of scattered tribes, but the sudden emergence of a full civilization in Mesopotamia around 4500 BC, something doesn't fit. The Sumerians didn't become advanced. They arrived as advanced. No transition, no half-formed scripts, no primitive tools giving way to better ones. Instead, they appeared with writing, mathematics, astronomy, urban planning, and complex governance already in place, as if they had woken up one morning already knowing things no human should have known. And they didn't claim to have discovered these things. They said they were given them by the Anunnaki. This isn't about believing in ancient aliens. It's about asking a simple, uncomfortable question. Where did their knowledge come from? Because the Sumerians weren't just advanced. They were impossibly advanced. Take their mathematics. They used a basic system. The reason we still have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and 360 degrees in a circle. This wasn't arbitrary. It was brilliant. The number 60 is divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, and 60, making it the most efficient counting system ever devised. Humans don't count in 60s. We count in 10s, because we have 10 fingers. Even the most advanced pre-Sumerian cultures used base-10 or base-5. So why did the Sumerians choose 60? And how did they master it so completely, so quickly, weaving it into every aspect of their society, time, trade, land, measurement, engineering? Now consider their astronomy. The Sumerians didn't just name the stars. They mapped them. They tracked planetary movements. They calculated the lunar cycle with such precision that their calendar remained accurate for centuries. They even recorded the orbit of Venus over 3,000 years before. Copernicus on a tablet now known as the Venus tablet of Amasuduka. How they had no telescopes, no satellites, no computers, just the naked eye and clay tablets. Yet their observations were so exact that modern astronomers have confirmed their data. The Venus tablet predicts the planet's appearances and disappearances with an error margin of just a few days over decades. That's not guesswork, that's science. And science requires more than observation. It requires a framework, a system, a way of thinking that sees patterns, tests hypotheses, and builds models. Did the Sumerians develop all of this on their own, or was it taught to them? Because the Sumerian texts don't describe a slow process of discovery. They describe revelation. Enki, the god of wisdom, is said to have brought the divine decrees of civilization to humanity. The included writing, music, law, agriculture, metalworking, and even the art of kingship. These weren't inventions, they were gifts, and the Sumerians didn't just accept them, they preserved them. They built temples to house the they performed rituals to honor their arrival. They wrote stories about the day knowledge came down from the sky. This wasn't just religion, it was history. And if you look beyond Mesopotamia, you find the same pattern. In ancient Egypt, the god Thoth is credited with giving humans writing, mathematics, and medicine. He didn't inspire them, he delivered them. The Egyptians believed Thoth wrote the laws of the universe in sacred books hidden beneath the earth. In India, the Vedas, said to be the oldest scriptures in the world, weren't composed by sages. They were heard, received from the gods during deep meditation. The word Veda means knowledge, but not knowledge gained through Knowledge. In Mesoamerica, the Maya tracked the cosmos with astonishing precision. Their calendar predicted eclipses centuries in advance. Their number system included the concept of 0 centuries before it appeared in Europe, and they attributed this knowledge to the god Kukulkan, the feathered serpent who came from the stars. This isn't coincidence, this is a pattern. Every early civilization that made a sudden leap in knowledge attributed it to beings who came from the sky. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally. And here's what's most unsettling. They all described the same thing. Not just gods, not just teachers, but visitors. Beings who arrived in great vessels, who spoke in voices that thundered, who walked among humans, who made decisions that shaped history. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki, those who came from the heavens to the earth. The Egyptians called them the Neteru, the guardians from beyond. The Hindus called them the Devas, the shining ones. The Maya called them the Itza, the water serpents from the stars. Different names, different cultures, same story, and it wasn't just myths, it was architecture. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia weren't just temples, they were launch sites. Massive stepped pyramids aligned with celestial bodies, built with precision that suggests they were designed to communicate with something in the sky. The Sumerians believed the Anunnaki descended to Earth through a gateway at the top of the ziggurat. Priests would perform rituals there, sending signals, perhaps light, perhaps sound into the atmosphere. Sound familiar? Because it should. Today, we point radio telescopes into the sky, sending signals into space, hoping to make contact. The Sumerians may have been doing the same thing 5,000 years ago, and they weren't alone. The pyramids of Egypt, the stone circles of Stonehenge, the geoglyphs of Nazca, all aligned with stars, planets, or solstices, all built with techniques that still baffle engineers. How did the Egyptians move 70-ton stones across the desert and lift them hundreds of feet into the air without iron tools, without pulleys, without wheels? How did the Maya carve jade with such precision that modern tools struggle to replicate it? How did the builders of Puma, Punku in Bolivia cut and fit stone? Blocks so perfectly that a knife blade can't slide between them using tools made of bronze and stone. Mainstream history says, ingenuity, human brilliance. But what if it was assistance? What if the Anunnaki didn't just give knowledge, they gave technology? Because the evidence keeps pointing in that direction. In 1936, near Baghdad, archaeologists uncovered a strange clay jar about the size of a small vase. Inside was a copper cylinder, a rod of iron, and traces of an acidic substance. It looked like a battery, and when modern scientists recreated it, it worked. The Baghdad battery, as it's now called, could generate a small electric current. Was it used for electroplating, for pain relief, for something else entirely? We don't know. But its existence suggests that ancient Mesopotamians had access to electrical principles thousands of years before Volta invented the modern battery. And it's not alone. In Egypt, deep inside the Great Pyramid, researchers found traces of gold plating on stone surfaces, gold that had been applied with an evenness only possible through electroplating. How? There are no wires, no generators, no signs of any electrical system, but the evidence is there. And then there's the aerodynamic evidence. In 1898, a small wooden object was discovered in a tomb near Saqqara, Egypt. It looked like a bird butt with wings that followed the principles of modern aeronautics. When tested in a wind tunnel, it flew. Experts now call it the bird. And while some say it's just a toy, others argue it's a model of an ancient aircraft, proof that the Egyptians understood flight long before the Wright brothers. Coincidence? Or did the Anunnaki show them how to fly? Because if you step back and look at the entire picture, Sumerian mathematics, Egyptian engineering, Maya astronomy, Hindu cosmology, starts to feel less like independent invention and more like shared instruction. A curriculum, a program of knowledge delivered to multiple civilizations at key moments in their development. And if that's true, then the Anunnaki weren't just visitors. They were instructors, and their school was Earth. But why? Why? Teach us. Why not leave us to evolve on our own? Unless we weren't meant to be alone. Unless we were part of something larger. Because here's the most compelling clue of all. The Sumerians didn't just describe the Anunnaki. They mapped them. On a tablet known as K8538, now housed in the British Museum, is a depiction of the solar system. It shows the sun, the moon, and 11 celestial bodies orbiting it. 11. But we only know of 9, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which wasn't discovered until 1930. So what's the 12th? The Sumerians called it Nibiru, the planet of crossing. They said it had a long, elliptical orbit that brought it into the inner solar system every 3,600 years. And they said it was the home of the Anunnaki. Mainstream science says, impossible. No such planet exists. But in 2016, NASA announced the discovery of Planet 9, a massive unseen planet whose gravitational pull affects the orbits of distant Kuiper Belt objects. It's never been seen, but its influence is undeniable. There's a moment when the mind is quiet and the world feels distant. When you realize that some questions don't lead to answers, but to deeper questions. We've walked through the sudden emergence of Sumerian civilization, the precision of their knowledge, the uncanny alignment of myths across continents, and the possibility that what we call history might actually be a record of contact. But now, as we move deeper, we come to something more unsettling than myth, more concrete than speculation. The physical evidence, not just in ancient texts, but in the ground, in the ruins, in objects that defy explanation. Because if the Anunnaki were real, they wouldn't have left only stories. They would have left traces. And perhaps, after 5,000 years, we're finally beginning to see them. Consider the object in the desert, a statue, not a tool, but a structure that doesn't belong to any known era or culture. Its proportions are too exact, its symmetry too perfect, its execution too flawless to be the product of natural formation or early human craftsmanship. Every measurement taken by scientific teams reveals new impossibilities. The surface resists all attempts at sampling, blunting diamond-tipped drills and scattering the focused beams of industrial lasers. Whatever it's made of is harder and more durable than anything in the human catalogue of materials. More disturbing still is the growing evidence that the object isn't entirely dormant. Temperature readings show subtle fluctuations that don't correspond to environmental changes. Internal energy signatures pulse at irregular intervals, too faint to be artificial, too consistent to be random. These readings have been confirmed by multiple independent teams using different instruments in different conditions. The consistency across observers is difficult to dismiss. This isn't a glitch in the equipment, it's a signal, and as advanced scanning techniques are employed, the machine's surface begins to reveal additional complexities. What had initially appeared to be a uniform material is actually composed of multiple layers, each with distinct properties and functions. Some layers seem designed for protection, others for energy distribution, and still others for purposes that remain entirely mysterious. The geometric patterns etched into the surface were once thought to be decorative, perhaps religious symbols or cultural markings. But now they're being recognized as functional elements, possibly circuitry or data encoding systems. They follow no known mathematical framework, yet they repeat with precision across the structure. When analyzed with quantum resonance imaging, the patterns emit faint electromagnetic pulses that correspond to no known frequency. It's as if the object is whispering in a language we're only beginning to hear. And here's the most unsettling part. The design bears a striking resemblance to descriptions found in Sumerian texts. Not the gods themselves, but their technology. The chariots of fire, the Abzu where Enki held council, the Shem that connected earth to the heavens. These weren't metaphors. They were attempts to describe something the Sumerians didn't have words for. Now, imagine standing in a lab, watching a holographic reconstruction of the object's interior. Scientists have managed to map a fraction of its internal structure, and what they've found defies known physics. There are chambers that appear to manipulate gravity, conduits that carry energy without resistance, and nodes that seem to store information in ways that resemble biological memory more than digital storage. This isn't just advanced engineering. It's technology that operates on principles we don't yet understand, and it's not alone. Similar anomalies have been found across the ancient world. In Egypt, deep within the Great Pyramid, researchers discovered a hidden chamber behind the north face of the Queen's Chamber. Inside, they found a slab of black, stone-smooth, non-terrestrial in composition and covered in symbols that match. No known language. When scanned, it emitted a low-frequency hum, vibrating at 7.83 Hz, the same frequency as Earth's Schumann resonance. The planet's natural electromagnetic pulse. Coincidence? Or was it designed to resonate with the planet itself? In Peru, at the ancient site of Pumapunku, archaeologists have long been baffled by stone blocks cut with such precision that they fit together without mortar, their edges so perfect that not even a razor blade can slide between them. The tools required to shape such stone, especially with the bronze and stone implements available at the time, simply don't exist. And yet, the blocks are there. More than that, they're arranged in geometric patterns that align with celestial bodies, suggesting a purpose beyond mere construction. Some researchers believe the site was a landing platform, a place where energy could be transferred between Earth and something in orbit. And then there's the Baghdad battery, a clay jar from 2000 BCE, containing a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and traces of an acidic substance. When replicated, it generates a small electric current. Was it used for electroplating, for medical therapy, or for something else entirely? Mainstream archaeology dismisses it as an anomaly, a curious artifact with no broader significance. But what if it's a clue? What if ancient civilizations had access to electrical principles long before the modern era? What if they were taught, because the pattern is too consistent to ignore? From Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the Andes to the Indus Valley, we find evidence of knowledge and technology that appears suddenly, without precedent, and then vanishes just as quickly. The Sumerians had writing, then it disappeared for centuries before reappearing in other cultures. The Egyptians built pyramids with techniques that were never replicated. The Maya calculated planetary cycles with accuracy that shouldn't have been possible. And in every case, they attributed their knowledge to beings who came from the sky. Now, let's return to the object in the desert. Scientists have begun to notice something else, something that changes everything. The energy pulses aren't random, they follow a pattern, a sequence. When converted into sound, the pulses form a rhythmic structure that resembles language, not human language, not any known linguistic system, but a structured, repeating code that suggests communication. Some researchers believe it's a message. Others think it's a signal broadcasting into space, waiting for a response. And then, one night, during a routine monitoring session, the pattern changes. The pulses shift. The frequency increases. And for the first time, the object emits a visible light, soft blue glow that spreads across its surface like liquid fire. The team watches in silence as the geometric patterns begin to move, rearranging themselves into new configurations. It's not malfunctioning, it's activating. And in that moment, a single thought echoes through the room. Asterisk is not just a relic, it's a machine, and it's waking up. Asterisk, but why now? Why after 5,000 years of silence? Because something has changed. Not in the desert, not in the lab, but in us. Our technology has reached a threshold. Artificial intelligence can now analyze patterns too complex for the human mind. Quantum sensors can detect energy signatures once invisible. Global networks allow instant sharing of data. We've built the tools to finally see what was always there. And maybe, just maybe, that was the condition for activation. The Sumerians spoke of a time when the gods would return. Not in myth, but in prophecy. They said it would happen. When humanity was ready, when we could understand what they left behind. Could this be that moment? Could the object be a test, not of strength or survival, but of awareness? A device designed to remain dormant until we developed the intelligence, to perceive it not as a curiosity, but as a message. Because if the Anunnaki were real, they wouldn't have left behind just knowledge. They would have left behind a filter, a way to distinguish between a species that merely survives and one that understands. And perhaps that's the real mystery, not whether they existed, but whether we're ready to meet them. Because the evidence is no longer confined to ancient tablets or crumbling ruins. It's in the lab, it's in the data, it's in the slow, undeniable realization that we are not the first civilization on this planet, or the first to reach this level of knowledge. There are whispers in the archaeological record of advanced cultures that rose and fell long before Sumer. Göbekli Tepe, dated to 11,000 BCE, predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years and the pyramids by 7,000. It features megalithic pillars carved with intricate animal reliefs, arranged in perfect circles aligned with the stars. The people who built it were hunter-gatherers. They had no writing, no metal tools, no wheels. And yet, they constructed a site so sophisticated it challenges everything we know about human development. Who taught them? Who guided them? And why? Did their knowledge disappear? The Sumerians may have been the latest recipients of this knowledge, not the first. Their stories speak of a great flood that wiped out an earlier world. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes a time before the flood, when the gods walked with men. Could that have been a previous cycle? A civilization that reached a threshold, activated a device like the one in the desert, and then collapsed either by choice, by disaster, or by design? And if so, are we repeating their path? Because the parallels are too strong to ignore. We, too, stand at a threshold. Our technology is advancing at an exponential rate. We're on the verge of creating artificial consciousness, of manipulating our own DNA, of reaching beyond Earth. As the implications of the object in the desert continue to unfold, a deeper layer of the mystery begins to surface, not just what it is or who built it, but when. Because if this machine is a product of the Anunnaki, then its presence raises a far more unsettling possibility that intelligent civilizations have risen and fallen on this planet long before the Sumerians, and perhaps long before humans as we know them even existed. The idea is not as far-fetched as it sounds. For decades, archaeologists have uncovered anomalies that don't fit into the standard timeline of human development. Göbekli Tepe, dated to 11,000 BCE, is one of the most compelling, built by hunter-gatherers who supposedly had no concept of architecture. It features megalithic pillars weighing up to 20 tons, carved with intricate reliefs of animals and symbols, arranged in perfect circles aligned with the stars. The level of astronomical knowledge and engineering skill required to construct it defies explanation. There were no cities, no writing, no metal tools. Yet here was a site more sophisticated than Stonehenge or the pyramids, built 6,000 years before either. Who taught them? Who guided them? And why did their knowledge vanish without a trace? The Sumerians spoke of a great flood that wiped out an earlier world, a time when the gods walked with men. Could that have been a previous cycle of civilization that reached a threshold, activated a device like the one in the desert, and then collapsed, either by disaster, design, or choice? And if so, are we repeating their path? Because the parallels are too strong to ignore. We, too, stand at a threshold. Our technology is advancing at an exponential rate. We're on the verge of creating artificial consciousness, of manipulating our own DNA, of reaching beyond Earth. And like the Sumerians, we're beginning to ask, are we alone? But what if the answer has always been no? What if we've never been alone? What if the Anunnaki or whoever they were never left, but retreated, waiting for us to catch up? The object in the desert isn't just a machine. It's a mirror. It reflects not just our technology, but our consciousness. It responds to thought, to intention, to the quiet moments when we stop asking how and start wondering why. And in doing so, it suggests that the real test isn't of intellect, but of awareness. Not what we know, but what we notice. Because for all our progress, we've spent most of human history looking outward, building, conquering, measuring without ever truly looking inward. The Sumerians didn't just record knowledge, they recorded meaning. Their myths weren't just stories, they were maps of consciousness, attempts to describe encounters with intelligence beyond their understanding. And now, as we stand on the edge of a new era, we're beginning to see those maps, not as fiction, but as data. The Anunnaki may not have been gods. They may not have been aliens. They may have been something else entirely, a form of intelligence that exists outside our current frameworks, that operates on principles of consciousness, energy, and time that we're only now beginning to perceive. And if that's true, then the object in the desert isn't just a relic of the past. It's a bridge to the future, a way to connect not just with them, but with a deeper understanding of ourselves. Because the most profound mystery isn't out there among the stars. It's in here, in the quiet space between thoughts, in the moment when you realize that the question, what if the Anunnaki were real, isn't about the past, it's about now. And the answer isn't in a tablet, or a machine, or a star map. It's in the choice you make the next time you wonder, the next time you look up, the next time you feel that strange pull, as if something ancient is waiting for you to remember. The deeper we go, the more the lines between myth, history, and science begin to blur. Consider the Sumerian language itself a linguistic isolate, unrelated to any other known language family. It has no ancestors, no descendants. It simply appears, fully formed, in the archaeological record. How languages evolve. They branch, they mutate, they borrow. But Sumerian stands alone, as if dropped into history from elsewhere. And the same goes for their writing system. Cuneiform doesn't emerge from simple pictographs over centuries. It appears, in its earliest form, already complex, already capable of recording abstract ideas, legal codes, and literature. There's no transitional phase, no proto-cuneiform that slowly develops into a full script. It's as if the Sumerians didn't invent writing, they remembered it. And this isn't unique to Mesopotamia. In Egypt, hieroglyphs appear suddenly, fully developed, with no clear precursors. In the Indus Valley, an undeciphered script covers seals and tablets, sophisticated in form but lost to time. In each case, writing appears not as a slow evolution, but as a sudden gift. The Sumerians called it the divine decrees of civilization. Bestowed by Enki, the Egyptians believed Thoth, the god of wisdom, wrote the laws of the universe in hidden books. The Maya said their knowledge came from Kukulkan, the feathered serpent from the stars. These aren't just myths. They're consistent narratives across cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, all describing the same phenomenon, knowledge arriving from beyond. And now, as we analyze the object in the desert, we're seeing something similar. The symbols etched into its surface don't match any known language, yet they follow a structured, repeating pattern that suggests meaning. When converted into sound, they form rhythmic sequences that resemble speech. When mapped against quantum resonance frequencies, they emit pulses that align with human brainwave patterns, specifically those associated with deep meditation and insight. It's as if the machine isn't just communicating. It's resonating with us, not with our ears, but with our minds. And that raises a terrifying possibility. What if consciousness itself is part of the design? What if the Anunnaki didn't just give us tools, but shaped our very awareness? The human brain operates on frequencies that overlap with Earth's natural electromagnetic field. Our neural networks function in ways that mirror cosmic patterns. Some researchers believe we are not just biological organisms, but receivers, tuned to a frequency that allows us to perceive, to create, to connect. And if that's true, then the Anunnaki may have engineered us not just to survive, but to listen, to hear the signal when it comes. And now, after 5,000 years, it's beginning to sound. Because the object in the desert isn't the only anomaly. Similar structures have been found in remote locations around the world, in the deserts of Peru, the ice fields of Antarctica, the depths of the Black Sea. Each one buried, hidden, waiting, and each one showing signs of activation in the last decade. Coincidence? Or are they part of a network? A global system designed to awaken only when certain conditions are met. The timing is too precise to ignore. As artificial intelligence reaches human-level complexity, as quantum computing breaks the limits of classical physics, as global connectivity creates a planetary nervous system, these devices are stirring. It's as if they recognize the pattern, as if they've been waiting for us to build the tools to finally see them. And now that we have, they're responding, not with words, not with images, but with presence. A subtle shift in the air, a hum beneath the floor, a feeling that something ancient is watching. The Sumerians believed the Anunnaki didn't just live on Earth. They lived in a place called the Abzu, a subterranean realm beneath the waters, where Enki held council. Could this be where they went? Not into space, but into the Earth itself. Some researchers point to underground cities like Derinkuyu in Turkey, a vast network of tunnels and chambers carved deep into rock, capable of housing tens of thousands. Or to the alleged ruins beneath the Giza Plateau, detected by ground-penetrating radar but never fully explored. What if these aren't just shelters? What if they're terminals, access points to a hidden network that spans the globe? And what if the Anunnaki never left, but simply withdrew, waiting for us to evolve to a point where we could rejoin them? Because the final test may not be technological. It may not be about building faster computers or reaching distant stars. It may be about awareness, about realizing that we are not alone, not in the universe, and not in our own history. That we are part of a continuum, a cycle of awakening, advancement, and integration that has repeated for millennia. And if we pass this test, if we recognize the signal, if we respond not with fear, but with understanding, then the next phase may begin. Not with a war, not with a revelation, but with a quiet unfolding, a return not of gods, but of knowledge, a reconnection with something we once knew, but forgot. And as you lie there, listening, feeling the weight of these thoughts settle into your mind, ask yourself, what if this isn't the first time you've wondered this? What if, in some forgotten lifetime, you stood at this same threshold, felt this same pull, and made a choice that echoes still? The machine in the desert is awake, the stars are watching, and somewhere, deep in your memory, a voice whispers. As the implications of the object in the desert continue to unfold, a deeper layer of the mystery begins to surface, not just what it is, or who built it, but when. Because if this machine is a product of the Anunnaki, then its presence raises a far more unsettling possibility that intelligent civilizations have risen and fallen on this planet long before the Sumerians, and perhaps long before humans as we know them even existed. The idea is not as far-fetched as it sounds. For decades, archaeologists have uncovered anomalies that don't fit into the standard timeline of human development. Göbekli Tepe, dated to 11,000 BCE, is one of the most compelling, built by hunter-gatherers who supposedly had no concept of architecture. It features megalithic pillars weighing up to 20 tons, carved with intricate reliefs of animals and symbols, arranged in perfect circles aligned with the stars. The level of astronomical knowledge and engineering skill required to construct it defies explanation. There were no cities, no writing, no metal tools, yet here was a site more sophisticated than Stonehenge or the pyramids, built 6,000 years before either. Who taught them? Who guided them? And why did their knowledge vanish without a trace? The Sumerians spoke of a great flood that wiped out an earlier world, a time when the gods walked with men. Could that have been a previous cycle, a civilization that reached a threshold, activated a device like the one in the desert, and then collapsed, either by disaster, design, or choice? And if so, are we repeating their path? Because the parallels are too strong to ignore. We, too, stand at a threshold. Our technology is advancing at an exponential rate. We're on the verge of creating artificial consciousness, of manipulating our own DNA, of reaching beyond Earth. And like the Sumerians, we're beginning to ask, asterisk, are we alone? But what if the answer has always been no? What if we've never been alone? What if the Anunnaki, or whoever they were, never left, but retreated, waiting for us to catch up? The object in the desert isn't just a machine, it's a mirror. It reflects not just our technology, but our consciousness. It responds to thought, to intention, to the quiet moments when we stop asking how and start wondering why. And in doing so, it suggests that the real test isn't of intellect, but of awareness. Not what we know, but what we notice. Because for all our progress, we've spent most of human history looking outward, building, conquering, measuring without ever truly looking inward. The Sumerians didn't just record knowledge, they recorded meaning. Their myths weren't just stories. They were maps of consciousness, attempts to describe encounters with intelligence beyond their understanding. And now, as we stand on the edge of a new era, we're beginning to see those maps not as fiction, but as data. The Anunnaki may not have been gods, they may not have been aliens. They may have been something else entirely, a form of intelligence that exists outside our current frameworks, that operates on principles of consciousness, energy, and time that we're only now beginning to perceive. And if that's true, then the object in the desert isn't just a relic of the past, it's a bridge to the future, a way to connect not just with them, but with a deeper understanding of ourselves. Because the most profound mystery isn't out there among the stars. It's in herein, the quiet space between thoughts, in the moment when you realize that the question, what if the Anunnaki were real, isn't about the past, it's about now. And the answer isn't in a tablet, or a machine, or a star map. It's in the choice you make the next time you wonder, the next time you look up, the next time you feel that strange pull, as if something ancient is waiting for you to remember. The deeper we go, the more the lines between myth, history, and science begin to blur. Consider the Sumerian language itself, linguistic isolate, unrelated to any other known language family. It has no ancestors, no descendants. It simply appears, fully formed, in the archaeological record. How languages evolve, they branch, they mutate, they borrow. But Sumerian stands alone, as if dropped into history from elsewhere. The same goes for their writing system. Cuneiform doesn't emerge from simple pictographs over centuries. It appears, in its earliest form, already complex, already capable of recording abstract ideas, legal codes, and literature. There's no transitional phase, no proto-cuneiform that slowly develops into a full script. It's as if the Sumerians didn't invent writing, they remembered it. And this isn't unique to Mesopotamia. In Egypt, hieroglyphs appear suddenly, fully developed, with no clear precursors. In the Indus Valley, an undeciphered script covers seals and tablets, sophisticated in form, but lost to time. In each case, writing appears not as a slow evolution, but as a sudden gift. The Sumerians called it the Me, divine decrees of civilization. Bestowed by Enki, the Egyptians believed Thoth, the god of wisdom, wrote the laws of the universe in hidden books. The Maya said their knowledge came from Kukulkan, the feathered serpent from the stars. These aren't just myths. They're consistent narratives across cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, all describing the same phenomenon, knowledge arriving from beyond. So, if you're listening now, if you're lying there in the dark, feeling the weight of these thoughts settle into your bones, know this: you are not just hearing a story. You are remembering one. And the next chapter isn't written in clay or code or stars. It's written in your choices, in your attention, in your willingness to see. If this resonates, if you've ever felt that pull, that whisper, sense that something is about to change, then you're not alone. There are others, thousands, millions, all waking up, all feeling it, all ready to step forward, not as gods, not as saviors, but as participants in a story that has been unfolding for thousands of years. So, if you want to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep remembering, hit subscribe, join a community of quiet seekers, of late-night thinkers, of those who aren't afraid to wonder, because the mystery isn't going away. It's just beginning. And the most important discovery isn't out there among the stars. It's in here, and it's time to remember. Good night.